We are live.
Good morning, everybody. John Sviocla here. I happen to be in beautiful Lake Nona, Florida. And today we've got a series of great articles that Dave's going to take us through. I want to thank our sponsor, CustomGPT.ai, who has a fantastic product to make it easy to build your own LLM in an incremental and safe way, as well as scale it. And with that, I'm going to give it to the ever vigilant David DeLello.
All right, thank you. We have a lot to get through today. Interesting mix of articles, some new product releases, along with some drama, and a deep dive into a biological piece of research that we saved just for you, Tim. So we will jump right in. First, we're going to talk about Bosch teaming up with Microsoft. They are doing some interesting exploration of applications in the car. And we will start with John.
Excuse me. Yeah. I think that I think this is an essential article, and I think that the headline does not really give you a feel for what it's about. It does begin with this notion of having better dialogue in the car and so forth. But if you read down into the article, Bosch has been committed since at least 2019 to putting AI and generative AI throughout their organization, in HR, in training, in the creation of new kinds of capabilities in the organization. They've trained over 30,000 of their employees on AI and generative AI. And so I think what's really interesting here is you have an old style, major league manufacturer and innovator, Bosch, deeply committing to the transformation of their organization, whether it's, search or the creation of new products or training their folks or the customer interaction. So I think any large organization could think about this. And back to our WINS framework, where we have, words, images, numbers, and sounds, this would be characterized, I believe, Bosch should be characterized as a company holding a lever, and they are really pushing on that lever hard to get productivity, innovation, and competitive advantage in the context of this new technological vein. So for that reason, a real elephant learning to dance, I would say this is essential.
Yep. You're on mute, David.
Thanks. I'm muting because I'm doing laundry in the background, and I'm hoping that nobody hears that. What I was saying is that was a very passionate plea. I'm wondering if anyone is willing to debate.
Oh, I was that important, and I guess John and I are twin sons of different mothers, because I had exactly the same reasoning, and I could go to essential. It's really not about the car stuff, although that's interesting. And I'm hopeful, because I hope less people get killed in cars, which we're still doing a lot of. But the point of this article, in my mind, is exactly what John said: how deeply this very large, significant manufacturer has already integrated AI and generative AI into their processes and workflows.
Yeah, I was actually optional for the reason that they are committing, and this is like a marketing article, that there is no yet implemented, operationalized application. They talk about 102, 120 in process. And it's a lot of words, and a lot of committing words, but not yet really there. And so I was thinking optional, but I can be talked into important because of the reasons that John and Tim, you stated. Yes. But there are others, other use cases like Siemens, and we've talked about several large companies doing this, similar to Bosch. So it's another one.
Yeah, I think I'm going to split the difference on this one. I'm going to go important for the same reason, Luda. I was looking at it and saying to myself, okay, they are working on it, but they haven't done it yet. But I do think it is important that they're working on that many applications and are dedicated to it, per John and Tim's case.
I thought they had already implemented some on the factory floor as well as in new product innovation.
Yeah, some of them sounded, certainly they talked about them as if they're deployed, their internal chatbot and a couple of others. So
I can't believe they educated 30,000 people and don't have anything deployed. And they educated those 30,000 people 5 years ago. I don't
But,
view it the same way.
there's no specific, we have deployed this, and that, and this is what the gains have been. There's nothing like this. It's talked about, we will, a lot of, but yeah, training 30,000 people. Anyway, I can be talked into importance saying that these people are committing to this initiative. This is on their site. I know their venture group, and they are investing and looking at investing in generative AI startups for the open innovation type of thing. So they are certainly across the board committing to this.
All right, we will go with important because Tim initially was important. Luda's on the fence, and it split the difference. All right, let's move on to the next one. Okay, so we have OpenAI actually filing a motion to dismiss some of the claims against it by the New York Times. Adam, what do you think about this?
So there are more details that have come to light, and as you pointed out, David, there is the full filing here that's available for people to review. Overall, though, I would rate this as optional. In the second paragraph, they reference that this is similar to the arguments that they made in January. And if you look at the January article, which is January 9th, it's almost the exact same headline. Like, this is not new news. It's continuing to spin the news cycle and get attention onto what's happening. What's new is that, as you said, David, we have these details. For anyone who really wants to dig in and get more information about what's going on with this, there's a lot more information now available. But overall, I would say this is optional.
So I'm going to say important here, and the reason is this, for me, having been an AI leader in a firm, this is one of those things you need to have an answer to in the hallway conversation. So here's the way I would put it: if you don't know this level of detail, you need to read this article, not the whole end stuff with all the detail about the actual filing, but just the basics. You need to be able to answer the basics of what's going on between OpenAI and the Times, because that's going to be a question you're going to have to answer is, where is litigation now? Where is IP now? And what do I have to worry about? And you got to be able to at least answer basically that you understand what's going on here. I agree it's basically optional in the grand scheme of things if you already have information. There's nothing new here, and this is going to take a while. It's important, hugely important in general, essential in terms of understanding where this is going to end up in terms of IP litigation. But that's a ways down the road. But I still think if you're an AI leader and your CEO or CXO or any other peer or somebody comes up to you and says, what's going on here? And does this impact us? You got to at least know the basics.
Yeah, I was sort of on the border of optional important myself, somewhat for similar reasons that you stated, Tim. I think it's good to look at, I think, actually more the filing than this article, because it gives you a pretty clear idea of the nature of the arguments that are going to be made against these types of lawsuits. So I thought that was interesting. I also if anyone has time to read the filing, I would highly recommend it. It's entertaining. It shows how just pompous OpenAI is, number one. They spend like 3 pages giving the history of how they developed this and how it's like, such a step forward for mankind. They claim that hallucinations are uncommon. It's very entertaining. Also just really well written. This is why I love working with lawyers when I'm working on writing projects. So for entertainment value, I would highly recommend it. I'm border optional important. Does anyone have an argument for either of those?
I'll just say I work part-time in a group of lawyers, and they pay a lot of attention to this stuff. And I think you can make fun of OpenAI, but this is what they've been targeting from the beginning, and it's a very solid case. It's going to be very difficult for the New York Times to prevail, I think.
Yeah, I think let's rate it important for the reasons that Tim stated. It's important for people to go into it and maybe read the filing if they're not exposed, they haven't been exposed to it. So.
Okay, we will go important, and we will move to the next. All right, so we've got StarCoder 2 coming out after StarCoder 1 has been around for a while. How do we find this? Important, optional? Amanda?
Yeah, I think this is optional because I think it's pretty much an announcement on a bunch of different features. One thing I will say though is if you're not really familiar with some of the steps and looking at the models, right, and sort of making comparisons of different models, a couple just high level things is that talks about there's 3 different models there. They claim it's trained on more data than the predecessor, and it allows for more personalization and things like that. But again, nothing really stands out to me. It does mention that they say that it's going to combat some of the ethical and legal challenges and things like that, maybe a little more. But again, to me, this feels just like an announcement, and it's a little, I wouldn't say deep dive technical by any means, but it is a little technical as well. So I'm kind of on the optional camp for this one.
Any counter arguments? Anyone feeling this is more on the important side?
No.
All right, we're just going to move right past this one then. We will go optional. Also, a lot of the features they mentioned were just talked about. We just talked about them, I think it was yesterday, with the GitHub Copilot enterprise version. So
Yeah.
kind of like in the shadow of that, more widely used product. Okay, what's next? Oh boy, this one, I tell you, this was too long. I didn't read. I read the intro. I read the conclusion. Tim, this came up yesterday, and we literally said, we're just going to save this one for Tim. I'm sure it's fascinating because it's about using models to replicate, I think, DNA more fully and create more complex compounds. But please take it away.
Yeah. This, again, if you're in the life sciences area, particularly in the research and target generation area, this is essential. Everybody else, really cool and interesting if you have time on the weekend, but optional. There's a few things here, so I'll try and be as succinct as possible. One is the accuracy and depth of model which they've gone to. So they can just generate a lot more different things a lot more accurately for a whole bunch of reasons. So that's a big step forward. The reason, and this is another thing that emphasizes things we've talked about, a concept we've talked about many times, which is this is not a transformer. Well, it has some transformer kind of stuff in it, which is the general architecture under LLMs, but it's got also different architectures in it, convolutional neural networks in particular. So it's a combination of models arranged in a different way because of DNA being a different kind of language than English or French or whatever. And in particular, the idea that you need longer sequences, and it's very, very difficult for transformers to deal with longer sequences. So that, so basically the idea is they're using a hybrid model, not the normal LLM model. They're doing a few other different things. And as a result, they've got something that can generate orders of magnitude longer sequences of DNA and RNA than have been possible before. And they can build up from that. And they've even been able to generate what they call complex functional sequences like CRISPR. Most people have heard of CRISPR, at least at the basic level, which is a way you can edit genes, completely different from DNA itself, but a functional set of proteins and enzymes and DNA and stuff that can go and carve up DNA. So really interesting, super important in my opinion if you're in the research area, because this is a big step forward towards multi-genetic targeting, which I'm a big fan of since I'm a type 1 diabetic, which is a multi-genetic disease.
All right, thank you for that. I doubt anyone's going to debate you on this one, but I'll just open the floor just in case. All right, optional for most, but interesting, essential if you are in this space. What's next? All right, so we have another product release here, SambaNova releasing a bunch of models. Luda, did this register as anything but optional for you?
Yeah, I was going between optional and important and ended up in important. And important because 3 reasons. So it's not necessarily this company, but it is a one of the first ones that show the whole vertical integration from the chips to a whole bunch of models and 56, and showing 1/10 of a cost for using those, right? So for that reason, I think it is important to know that this is happening. So in essence, the offering here is that you kind of deploy this in an enterprise and it serves multiple needs. You can pick whatever model you want. It's a cheaper potentially application of the models, and it's more accurate, they claim. So it's actually what we've been saying will be happening, and this is happening. So for that reason, it's important.
Any detractors? I see you.
No, I could argue optional, but I would go with important too. Yeah, I mean, Alan Kay said many times, among other people, that if you're serious about software, you should think about hardware. And we see that over and over again, and now everybody's doing it. SambaNova was the first, so we'll see if it's enough of a first mover advantage to make them a significant player, given that everybody's doing this now.
Right. I don't think as a company it would actually be the company to do this, right? Because everybody else will catch up. But this is happening, and this is important for the enterprises to know.
What are you thinking, Adam? I thought you saw you kind of maybe
just it's in terms of the number of parameters, it's similar in size, I understand, to GPT-4, but we haven't seen any benchmarks yet. So I was in a bit of a wait and see kind of mode. It's a nice concept, but I was just going to sort of reserve judgment in terms of the importance of it till we actually saw it prove out. And I'm sure there would be more news on it. But Luda, you make some really good points about the full, the end-to-end stack and the significance of that. So I certainly could go either way.
Oh, there was another point, if I'm right, and it's in this article, the transparency of data that the models were trained on. Is this here? I think it is. And that's another very critical thing to note, because they actually allow to the people who deploy this to see the data and adjust the data and put new data on top of it and take it in-house or whatever the cloud. So that is a capability also critically important, and we'll see more of. So it's in that sense, it's also pretty good to know.
All right, we will go with important. What do we have next? Okay. So we have Idiogram. We have a new model here. I assigned this one to myself, by the way, and there was a reason for that. Basically, I think the highlight here about this model is that it's much better at producing text within an image. So while on the one hand, it's simply going to make it really easy to make cat memes and very creative ones, which I was thinking right when I read this article, and then they actually have a cat meme down there at the end. I think what's good here is that you think about advertising actually most and marketing purposes, and being able to get the text into the image, that's something that's still, even DALL-E and MidJourney are not good at. And if this performs as well as it looks, that's a pretty great feature. I know there's just so many models right now, but I also thought it was interesting that, Andreessen Horowitz is one of the investors in here. So that gives it even a little bit more street cred. And I don't know if you already passed this image, but the image of the chicken made of fried chicken made me laugh hysterically. So I don't know. I was borderline important because of the implications for marketing content, but I have a feeling someone's going to knock me down off of that. So go ahead, fire away, somebody.
I'll be happy to do that. It's a product announcement, and while it is stunning, the images are stunning, and if they really have solved the text problem, that much better. But remember, it's better. It's still not perfect. we'll have to see. We'll have to wait and see. So if they really have made a substantial improvement in text placement and generation within the images are stunning, and they have the text prompt enhancement and all that stuff. But that's also available in most of the other image generators now, and we'll just have to see. So I think it could be interesting, but I would generally we take these product announcements with a grain of salt, which I would say I would definitely take this one with a grain of salt, although I did like the chicken as well.
Yeah, I would agree with Tim, optional. But it is interesting to watch this, right? And see how it will transpire. It sounds like this particular company will get rolled into something else, and pretty quickly also. So I'm just not sure how this is going, but it's going very quickly. It's evolving.
Yeah, the more interesting thing is the valuations here. And Andreessen Horowitz has made a lot of money on the greater fool theory, which most venture capitalists do, which is, you fund up a company and just get it bought for more than you put into it. But man, this company's already raised almost $100 million. Although, Instagram was bought for over $1 billion. So maybe they'll be right. We'll see. But that's in many ways the more interesting part here is watching all this capital float around and seeing if people can get out in one piece.
Yeah, I figured you guys would push me there. So we'll go with optional. I will make a note for marketers though, because
David,
it is a good tool.
I will say though that MidJourney is really the front runner in the space right now. And I actually went in, I launched it and I gave it my standard prompt when I'm testing adherence, which is 3 bears on a beach at sunset, a brown bear, a black bear, and a polar bear wearing specific hats respectively. And it nailed it, right? So it's really doing a phenomenal job, and the photo-realism is rivaling MidJourney. So it's definitely one to watch, although perhaps for our audience, I'm gonna have to side with the others here and say optional.
Yeah, but the other thing too is it kind of speaks to what models can do when you really specialize, right? Why can't MidJourney do this with the text? Why can't DALL-E do it? Because they're generalist models, right? And they're focused on trying to be like pretty good at everything. So I just thought that was interesting too. But we'll go optional.
Well, actually, yeah, we could have a longer discussion about that. I don't think that's the reason why, but we can have that discussion offline.
All right, absolutely. Let's go to the last article today. We've got some dust up among lawmakers in the EU getting a little bit annoyed with Mistral for potentially having lobbied on behalf of Microsoft when they were trying to limit the EU AI Act effect on them. So, Paul, you brought this one to our attention. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, this is optional, but I thought it was worth discussing. Certainly, Mistral and 2 of the other AI companies in Europe have been making a strong case to European government and investors that Europe needs to have its own indigenous AI stack as a counterbalance to the power of West Coast and Valley firms. And there was a whole lot of lobbying and claims and counterclaims about who was influencing the AI Act. And to see that Microsoft actually has an option to invest in a company that is marketing itself at times as a strategic asset to Europe and France is stunning to many over there. Now their point is this is just a distribution deal and it shouldn't be viewed as a big point, but it's I think that's one point. Second point is I think it's a yet another again of Microsoft playing very open and making sure that it's getting a first mover advantage on a very promising set of technology ahead of AWS and Google on the cloud side.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I'll channel my inner John Sviokla. This is just a genius move by Microsoft, because what's France going to do if they go against this? Then they're going against the validation and investment of the biggest tech company in the world into their baby. If they support it, they're giving the fox and the henhouse problem, right? They're basically letting Microsoft right into the EU And for Mistral, it's also a great deal because I think they're right. They are doing it for distribution, and they're going to get enormous distribution leverage by doing this.
And Tim, I think yet again, Google is caught in their underwear with all this drama over there about models here, and AWS is AWOL. So the execution on Microsoft, to underline your point, remains impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Google's stock has responded in kind over the last several days, and a lot of people are just fed up with their management. So sounds like we'll go optional, but interesting, and a stellar move as we've discussed. So I think we covered a lot today. We had 7 articles. I don't think we ended up with any essentials though, but we had a couple important. Bosch's commitment to generative AI we said was important. The SambaNova models release we went with important. And I believe everything else was optional, if I'm not missing anything. So really good discussion today, and I'm impressed that we covered it all in 26 minutes. So kudos to everybody, also with still an amazing discussion and debate. I love talking to you guys about these things. I hope everybody out there enjoys it too. And by the way, happy extra day that you got this year with the Leap Day. And
happy birthday to all the Leap Day babies.
We'll see you guys beginning of March tomorrow.
Yay.
Everyone can stay on for 2 minutes after we